Welcome to the Scary Basement Jumpscare. Each month, me and my friend Mikey McCollor find ourselves suddenly and jarringly back in the horrifying scary basement, and we're never ready for it. I'm Roxy Polk, and I was in the middle of going over my weekly chore checklist, and then I was gonna go return some crafting materials at Walmart.
And I'm Mikey McCollor, and I was just unpacking from my trip to Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And Roxy?
Mikey?
Let me tell you what I saw there. It was a Mothman. I saw a Mothman.
Mothman?
Yeah, he was there.
I know a thing or two about Mothman, Mikey. I don't know about you.
Right, you wrote your college dissertation on the Mothman, didn't you?
Yes, I have a degree in Mothmanology.
And your parents said you were never going to get a job in your field.
Yeah, joke's on them.
Tell me about him.
All right. So I guess I'll start out sort of giving you the history of the Mothman kind of in order and stuff. And eventually we'll get to like theories. What? Who? Where? When? Mothman?
Why Mothman?
Why? Yes, exactly. Most important part. Why? Okay, so in November 1966, 5 grave diggers were working in a cemetery in West Virginia. Mm-hmm. And they spotted a strange human-like figure in the trees above their heads while they were working late at night, presumably digging a grave. So it's all very, like, spooky.
They were doing their quantum physics homework.
Yeah, just in the graveyard. And so they saw this thing flying above their heads, and it also screeched. Like, the noise it made, the screeching sounded like an injured woman.
Oh.
So, overall, very, very creepy. So that was the first recorded instance of people witnessing it. But then a much more, like, in-your-face encounter happened a couple days later, where there were 2 couples from Point Pleasant, which Point Pleasant is the epicenter of all of this. Mm. They were a little bit outside of town, probably necking in like some deserted area, kind of in the woods.
Man, I love the term necking.
It's weird.
It doesn't involve your neck whatsoever.
It's very dated, I feel like. There's probably a better term I could be using for it, I guess. It was the 60s, so it feels like...
I'm wondering if dated was the first time, or I'm sorry, if necking is the first term that people were like, that's actually offensive to people who don't have necks.
I mean, it could have been. I'm sure you can find it on the internet
You've
somewhere.
definitely met people who are just like kind of short little guys, and they've got their shoulders hunched up real high. It looks like they don't have any necks. They perhaps took offense to the term necking and said, can we rebrand this? Maybe.
Or they're just like, that just makes it sound like you have a neck fetish. You just want to kiss necks, and that's it.
I do have that fetish. I love a neck.
This is an erroneous zone for you. Gotcha. Noted.
Okay, so we've got kids necking.
Yeah, they're just like hanging out. Maybe they're smoking weed. Maybe they're getting drunk. Who knows? They're just like outside of town hanging out. They're actually like married couples, I think. Or at the very least, they're couples who are involved with each other. So there's 4 of them. Their car, on their way back into town, is chased by like a giant creature with a 10-foot wingspan.
Whoa.
Whose eyes glow red when the headlights hit it, when light hits it.
He's like sprinting?
It is keeping pace with their car up in the air. So it is chasing them from the air. And they're so freaked out by it that they accelerate the car to around 100 miles an hour at one point. God. And it is still keeping pace with their car. But after a certain amount of time, eventually it kind of just seems to lose interest and sort of drops off.
Oh.
And leaves them alone for some reason. And they pull over and they're like, wait, did we just see what I thought we saw? Like, that's insane what just happened. That can't be real, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we should go back, is what they say. I think we should go back and chase down this thing to make sure it is what we thought we saw.
Dude, everybody who doesn't like horror movies always watches a horror movie and they're like, real people would never go back in the house to investigate. No, we would. We're idiots.
Yeah.
Human beings deserve to be killed by Mothman. We are always trying to put ourselves in a position where we can get killed by a beast.
Well, they were very lucky because when they went back to where they'd kind of started being chased, Mothman was just standing in the middle of the road chilling, like waiting for them.
He was.
Yes. And he was just there, and then he went straight up. He didn't like bat his wings or anything. He just kind of like levitated up and away.
Like he had a jetpack?
And basically, I think it's kind of the same movement is what it sort of sounded like as it was described.
Okay.
And just left them alone. He was like, I'm done with you, I guess. So these teens were like we have to go to the cops because this is insane. So they're stepping it up a notch.
Mm-hmm.
So they go and they report it to the cops, and the cops, usually they would wave off something like this because maybe they're a little drunk. It's late at night.
Sure.
They're kids. Normally, a small town cop would probably not take them seriously, but this guy does. He believes them.
Oh.
So he takes down the statement, and he decides, yes, Mothman is real.
This is just the most gullible cop in town. When he catches kids like doing graffiti, they're like, oh, I just saw somebody else and they dropped the can and I picked it up and got paint all over my hands. He's like, well, we appreciate you being a good citizen. Appreciate you picking up that litter.
Good for you, son. So he takes some of his people out to go check it out. And actually, where they were at is close to this, God, what is it? So I found a couple of different descriptions of it. One place said it was a TNT factory that had been decommissioned. Another place said it was like an old nuclear plant.
Wow.
So I don't know if it was both, if it was just one of those. But basically, it was some sort of destructive manufacturing place that used a lot of chemicals that had been like decommissioned and had since been kind of like taken over by nature and animals, and actually like a lot of birds in particular.
So no matter what, it was an explosive place.
Yes, they buried some waste out there. Like there was a place to kind of just put some toxic waste or something to not think about it anymore. Uh-huh. So people didn't really go near it, so it's animals had sort of taken it over. And that was kind of near where the couple was, so they were like, whatever it is, it must live out there, right? So the cops go, they check that, they find nothing. So while they're doing that, another crazy thing happened. That same night, about like 90 miles north from from Point Pleasant, this guy has his TV go out very strangely. And it starts to show a weird, strange pattern on the TV. Mm-hmm. Couldn't find a description of what it was, just it was not normal and not something that TV should have been able to do in 66, I guess. And then he starts to hear a horrible, inhuman screech outside that slowly gets louder and louder and louder. And at the same time, his dog is outside barking like crazy. He goes outside and he sees a tall humanoid figure with wings in his yard.
This is the same night as the couple saw him?
Yeah, and like 90 miles north.
What?
And so it's just standing in his yard. And,
so the Mothman's real is where we're at.
Right now, yes. And with all of these accounts.
Nobody's having simultaneous. If they were all in like the same area, I'd be like, okay, whatever chemical is in the TNT factory has seeped into the air and people are hallucinating. And when you're with your girl and she hallucinates a Mothman and you're really into her, you know that she's way hotter than you. You're like, yeah, I saw the Mothman too. So then I believe it. 90 miles north, there's another man who is also seeing the Mothman on the same night. He's real. Full stop.
But what if there's more than one?
I'm sorry?
Also.
You're saying there's a potential group of Mothmen?
That's a theory. We'll get into the theories later. One of the theories is there's multiple Mothmans.
Okay. They're like the Justice League. They spread out and conquer.
Multiples of Mothmen would be when we get to there. So his dog is going crazy. The guy is just opens the door, looks at it, closes the door, picks up his shotgun, goes to bed.
I'm picturing like that Simpsons gif where like Homer Simpson backs up into the bushes. He just sees it and slowly closes the door again.
Yeah, he sees it fly away as he's doing that essentially, and his dog starts going off after it, like into the woods, even though it's flying up on top of the trees. And his dog is never seen again.
What?
His dog is never seen again.
Oh my God.
But he's never menaced by the Mothman ever again, I guess.
Well, he gave it a sacrifice.
I guess so. Or the Mothman has a new friend. They became buds.
Oh, the Mothman adopted him.
Yeah, the Mothman was like, you're not taking care of your dog. You leave him outside. It's cold out here. Dog can come with me, and I will give him a warm fire to sit by, I guess, in the evenings.
Okay, this is a great point, because does the story at all describe what sort of state the dog was in?
I mean, it was barking because it was something it didn't understand, but literally it just ran off after him. Nothing else besides that.
I just mean, like, when you first said that the dog has never been seen again, I was terrified. But then I thought, like, if that dog was skinny, or if that dog, like, clearly needed a bath, and the Mothman saw that and just brought him to Petco.
I feel like Mothman is pretty thoughtful, honestly, maybe a prankster. So I feel like he'd probably take care of that dog. He probably knew something was going to happen to that dog if he didn't intervene.
Roxy, I think that's going to be something we're going to have to really be careful about when we do these real life cryptid episodes. We've got to be fair. Like, not all monsters, just because he's a tall humanoid figure with a 10-foot wingspan and glowing red eyes doesn't mean he's trying to hurt dogs. Yeah. He could be a sweetie.
Something about this guy in his TV. He needed to be in his yard, I guess. Or this guy hallucinated it and the dog just saw something else.
Do you think the pattern he saw on the TV was just the Mothman's reflection in his television?
Oh, he's standing behind
him. The Mothman was just peering up, trying to watch the honeymooners with him.
He was trying to tell him in his moth language, hey, your antenna's out. But he didn't understand it, so he just heard the shrieking instead. He was like, oh, shit. He doesn't understand it. He's getting his gun. Okay, I'm leaving.
I definitely have friends that, like, you invite them to a party and the way they communicate is weirder than the rest of your friends. Yeah, I get it. I'm sympathetic.
So the name Mothman actually was literally inspired by the name Batman. Because Batman was coming out at the time, and they were like, it's like a moth, and it's like a man. Call him Mothman.
Okay.
So literally, it's just a guy dubbed it in a newspaper the next morning after this came out as Mothman, and it just stuck. But I thought it was quite funny that it was inspired by Batman.
Like the Batman comic book was coming out? Or the Adam West Batman?
Adam West Batman was 66.
Okay.
Which I know because they literally did like a new comic series that was called Batman 66, because otherwise I probably wouldn't have committed that to memory.
Sure.
But yeah, it was supposed to be like basically off of the old TV show. So after that, everything went kind of insane in Point Pleasant and the surrounding area. There was over 100 reported sightings, and sometimes it would be more like UFOs and sometimes crafts, but mostly just a lot of unidentified flying thing. So people would be like, I saw the Mothman. I saw the Mothman. And it's just like what you just saw, a shadow. But then there'd be straight up things like, let's see, I got a couple of them here. So there'd be differing descriptions. So a lot of them were not really consistent. Some of them would describe the Mothman as not having a head. Just his face is in his chest. He doesn't have a head. Oh. It's more like his head is like, sorry, I'm doing this in the video so people who are just listening can't hear. But basically, yeah, just like his face is in his pecs.
I do not.
He does not have a head.
I do not like that.
So that was some people's description. Other people would just say it was different colors, which could easily just be like time of day or lighting. Mm-hmm. Some people would say it would shuffle from side to side. Some people would say it would just stand there.
He could strafe?
Apparently, according to some people.
He's more advanced than the characters in the Resident Evil games then.
Sometimes he would levitate. Sometimes he'd just stand there. So there wasn't really a consistency with how he kind of moved. So aside from like creature sightings, there was also mention of a just strange man who like felt like he was a creature pretending to be a human, essentially, in the way he interacted with people.
I've invited friends to parties who seem like a creature dressed as a human.
He had like gigantic glasses, a weird long bowl cut, and was wearing a weird outfit, and his motions were kind of weird. He had like long fingers, and he would just act things that didn't make sense and was fascinated by a pen like he had never seen it before. This could just be somebody making up something, or it could be some unfortunate soul who just had some mental capabilities they were dealing with, and the people interpreting them were less than kind.
Or let's call it what it is. It could be the Mothman trying to infiltrate our society.
Exactly. I think the way it was described is sort of like in Men in Black, there's the cockroach guy wearing the human skin.
Sure.
Who doesn't understand how humans act.
Did this man have a back that looked like if you ever stuffed an entire suit into a backpack?
Basically. And so even stranger still, actually, now that I didn't actually plan to bring up Men in Black in that way, but so, the concept of Men in Black, just like as an urban legend as well. Mm-hmm. So this guy he went around town asking some people some weird things about UFO sightings, and then got into a car escorted by these guys all dressed in black hats in a black car.
Oh no.
Men in Black took him away, or they were chauffeuring him around. Who knows?
The good guys dressed in black. Remember that, just in case we're ever face to face and make contact.
I wish I could remember more of the song so I could jam with you. I'm a failure. So
Hold on. You're a failure because you don't remember the 1999 Will Smith Men in Black song? Roxy?
Hey,
that cannot stand.
It was the millennium, okay, Mikey? How could I forget the millennium? That's on me. So in addition to things like that are kind of like, okay, he was kind of like acting weird. He had like giant glasses, kind of like a moth, I guess. There was just a straight up guy who was like, oh, I was visited by a UFO when I was in my truck. And a guy came out. He was well dressed. He talked to me telepathically, told me his name was Indrid Cold.
Jesus.
And we had a conversation about how he told me about different things about his alien people. He was very calm and friendly and polite and smiling at me. And then he left. And then he came and visited me many other times. And he took me on a 6-month vacation to his home planet once. And his family legit, like, he went missing for 6 months. And his family believed him and were just like, oh, he's just in space with Indrid Cole, who somehow it became synonymous with Mothman. So if you ever hear somebody talking about Mothman or Indrid Cold.
Indrid Cold. That's his. I mean, that sounds like a Superman Clark Kent sort of distinction.
I guess so, yes. I think that's where he got that name. And then also the idea of shape-shifting associated with the Mothman kind of started to exist. Maybe he can assume a human form or something to blend in. Who knows? Okay.
Let's just kind of recap where we're at with this mythology now.
Uh-huh.
We've got a couple of folks in a graveyard see some kind of creature hovering above them.
Uh-huh.
Shortly thereafter, on the same night, 2 teens see a moth-like creature.
Couple nights later.
Oh, this is just a few nights later.
2 groups of teens. A couple nights, yeah. I mean, like it's not the same night. The guy with his dog is the same night.
It's definitely Mothman season.
Yes, basically. That's what Mothman fever, actually, I think is what they even actually call it.
You gotta catch it.
Oh, yeah.
So Point Pleasant is seeing Mothman everywhere. And so far what we know about him is he can fly. And then all of a sudden people start seeing weird, socially awkward, big glasses men who have...
and like all kinds of things flying through the sky. Like everybody wants to get in on it. It's the cool, hip new thing to say you saw Mothman, that you know
So Point Pleasant, West Virginia is becoming like this cool place that has like a little... it has a bit of an identity all of a sudden.
Yeah, exactly. And they are going to ride that train
for
quite a while. But this is all just happening in like a single year right now. So it's still just 1966 that all of this is going bananas over there. Okay, some other theories about what Mothman are evolved. Like they started thinking about maybe a more grounded kind of take on it. The chemical waste in the area. It's possible a bird or some sort of other animal had gotten into it, had become like either mutated or, you know, became unstable in any way. You know, a bird that might not normally chase down people decided to chase down a car because it saw like flashing lights or something, got confused. Who knows? Also because birds in the area could kind of look like what was described initially. The sandhill crane and a different species of owl in particular. Sandhill crane has like red dots under, like on its face. And owls, the way their eyes reflect when light hits them, it does look red because of like the membranes in their eyes. So it very easily could have been these teens saw a big bird that was like confused or just happened to be going the same way they were. And a cop happened to believe them. It's not that they didn't see anything, but they said they saw a monster, which might not have been a monster. Cop decided to believe him, lended some like credence to it. Then everybody went wild because they were trying to one-up each other. So now suddenly there's an alien invasion and this guy's going to space and hanging out on an alien planet with a dude in a suit or whatever.
I've heard this phenomenon described before where people kind of like one person has an experience and other people just like think about that experience so hard that they start to manifest it, even though it's not necessarily happening to them.
It's a kind of mania. I almost wrote down what that was called because like they kind of described it as this town in this area essentially going like kind of crazy.
Let's refer to it as Mothmania.
Mothmania, yes. So that is all just happening in 66. And then in December of 67, the sightings basically stop because
Christmas.
Mothman is sighted.
Mothman goes home. see his
he
folks.
wanted to visit his family. He wanted to visit that dog that he adopted, you know. I want to leave him. So in 1967, the horrible tragedy took place that kind of defines a bigger part of the Mothman myth. And horribly, 46 people died when the Silver Bridge, which was located over the Ohio River, suddenly collapsed under the weight of heavy rush hour traffic around like Christmas time because there's an increased traffic. And it fell because there was like a single faulty suspension chain that was weakened, and then a single bolt snapped in it. And the whole thing just went down. Like, it was very poorly constructed and taken care of. But people had said that they had seen the Mothman in the area before the collapse. So they were either thinking Mothman did it, or the idea of him being like a portender of doom, or kind of like telegraphing, like to kind of like try and tell people like, I'm here, so it means it's bad news, so stay away.
That's the big part of the Mothman mythos that I had always heard, that like seeing the Mothman, I mean, the movie is literally called The Mothman Prophecy. Seeing the Mothman tells you that a disaster is about to happen. Yeah,
exactly. So that's kind of where this started. And also people stopped seeing the Mothman in the skies, either because they were extremely concerned with this tragedy where like 46 people died in a very small town. So there was a lot of stuff to deal with. So they weren't really thinking about how cool it was to know Mothman. Or alternatively, the interpretation could be Mothman told us about, he was hanging out here trying to tell us about this bridge. Then it happened. And then he left because that's what he was here to do.
And is this bridge in the same town that everybody is seeing the Mothman?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
It's the Silver Bridge is in Point Pleasant. Or like adjoins to it. Technically, it is connected to it one way or another, or is just straight up in it. So yeah, despite that being a structural issue, people said they saw Mothman and attributed it to him. And so the rumors died down for like a decade. So like it wasn't cool to talk about Mothman for like 10 years. Nobody gave a shit. Until this guy, John Keel, wrote the book, Mothman Prophecies. So in 1975, he wrote that. And the way it is constructed is essentially just taking observations and stories from the town and the surrounding area. And he started to theorize that the Mothman was an extra-dimensional entity, not of this world.
Of course.
Yeah, he's on like some next level shit. That's how he's able to tell all these things.
That's kind of like, you know how everybody's like, yeah, Grand Theft Auto was like a huge innovation for video games, but like somebody would have thought of that eventually. Eventually somebody would say like, what if there was a video game where you could just go anywhere? But it's still like a cool idea in the beginning, even though it seems so obvious in retrospect. That's what it is to say that the Mothman is an interdimensional being. It seems so obvious, but it's still a cool idea to be the first guy to say like, what if he was interdimensional?
Yeah, because he was kind of suggesting the part about him warning about things instead of just being a scary, like, looming figure. Because he kind of hypothesized for the first time, I think, that the Mothman was trying to warn about the bridge collapse. And that, yes, because he's an extra-dimensional entity. Sorry, not interdimensional. What am I saying?
Right. He's extra because he's in multiple dimensions at once.
Yes. Yeah. And then, yeah, like in 2002, the book was turned into a movie starring Richard Gere and Laura Linney. This movie brought the legend to the rest of the world and kicked off Mothman mania in the town of Point Pleasant. So it wasn't really until 2002 that it really took off, because now it's like a movie that's in movie theaters all over the country suddenly. So they decide, hey, let's like lean into that hard because we're a tiny town and why not? So now that entire town's identity is essentially like a tourist destination. And they have a yearly Mothman festival.
Yep.
And they installed a 12-foot metallic statue of Mothman in 2003. So it took them a year to construct that glorious statue that I sent Mikey a photo of. This statue mysteriously has a fully defined six-pack, hairy chest, and a sculpted butt.
It's like kind of hot, right?
Yeah, people are thirsty for Mothman, apparently, as I assume this sculptor was.
Okay, so here's the thing. I wasn't necessarily aware. I knew there was a bridge collapse. You and I both spent time in Minnesota, Roxy, I think at the time when the 35W bridge just collapsed. And
yeah, I'm actually that's part of it.
Oh, that's coming up
later too. Yes, it is actually, yeah.
Remind me, did anybody die in the Minnesota bridge collapse?
Unfortunately, 13 people did, and a lot more were injured. So they were able to save a lot more people from like the wreckage. They were still injured, but 13 people still died.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
For whatever reason, in my head, I was like, nobody really died in that bridge collapse, but I guess they did. I guess people die in bridge collapses. Here's my whole thing. When I heard that the Mothman portended a bridge collapse, I thought it was just like the bridge collapsed and nobody was on it and it was okay and who cares? It's just like a silly little he was there to tell us. 46 human beings died. And we turned it into a festival. One.
Yeah,
that feels bananas to me.
Turning their tragedy into a moneymaker, I guess.
Do we know how the families feel about this?
I think since that was in the 60s, and then this started happening in 2002, it was probably so much time had passed that people who are probably still dealing with the tragedy had hopefully gotten over it.
They had also been killed by the Mothman.
That too, I guess you had to silence them. So in addition to the yearly festival, that Mothman statue is just there all year round. And then they also opened a Mothman museum and research center a couple years later in 2005. So you can learn about Mothman year round.
Imagine getting a degree in biology, spending 8 years getting your Mothman doctorate, and then you're assigned to the Mothman research facility, and you're just making corn dogs at the fair for Mothman.
Hey, but in your downtime, you can work on the Great American Novel. So
that sounds great. Yeah, that was Stephen King's first job. He is a biologist who was assigned to Mothman, and then he wrote Cujo.
So, there you go. You can just write about a murderous dog instead. Whatever happened to that dog? It's Mothman's dog. Maybe.
Did I tell you I had a dog named Cujo growing up?
No.
Yeah, she was.
How did you not tell me this?
She was a 4-pound toy poodle. We named her Cujo.
Okay, well that's when you do it, when it is a tiny little dog like that. That's when you name it really that. Cute. Because now it's funny. So also local restaurants and Mothman merch and food is produced year round. I talked to you a bit about this, but the BuzzFeed Unsolved, they did an episode on it where they kind of do a tour of the town, and they get a pizza that has a Mothman design on it and cookies that have a Mothman design. And there's a little cutout where you can put your head in this wooden cutout where you can be the Mothman. So they've got stuff going kind of all the time in addition to the festival. Sightings they've decreased since the 60s, but there's a lot of other strange occurrences and things that happened in the area that are covered in the book that you could attribute to Mothman, but you could also just, hey, weird things happen sometimes, or just accidents happen, and it can't always be because Mothman.
Is this the availability heuristic? The mental fallacy, I guess it would be, where it's kind of how you say, whenever I wash my car, it rains. And it's those two things aren't correlated. It's just you only happen to remember it. You only have that information available because of that. So it's it's not that bad things happen all the time in Point Pleasant because they have a Mothman. It's because you notice the bad things and have an attributable source and just chalk it up to the Mothman.
Yeah, a lot of the accidents that occurred, I didn't include them in details because they didn't cite Mothman when these things happened. They were just a thing collapsed and people died. And
man dropped really from 15 feet in the air.
Yeah, but you didn't see Mothman there, so how does it correlate to... It's just kind of the general thing that people, like you said, will attribute things when they have something else to kind of point to. But so some of the more infamous ones, Mothman goes on a trek. He is not in Point Pleasant. He goes all over the place.
Okay.
So apparently there is sightings of Mothman in Chernobyl a few days before it melted down.
Really?
Which I didn't know about until I investigated it for this. I did not know that he was sighted by Chernobyl. He was seen apparently trying to chase people away to kind of warn them, to kind of try and chase them out of the city.
Okay.
But nobody listened to him, I guess.
He does have future vision and he wants to save us.
I guess
he
so.
saved that man's dog.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So it paints this picture more and more that he is trying to do something else. And apparently 5 days before 9/11, several people said they saw a large crane-like figure in the area.
A crane-like figure?
Crane-like, yeah. Which some of the theories are that he had the shape of a sandhill crane. So that's why it's he could just be a bird.
It is funny that the Point Pleasant folks back at the Mothman research lab are he also has shape-shifting powers. Don't forget. It's no, he doesn't. Yeah. He's a moth. He's already a moth man. He's already weird enough. He's not taking the shape of a crane. I hate to tell you guys. That's just a different future-preserving, human-saving crane.
Yeah. it got a little lost and was in the middle of New York City somehow. So yeah, and then one of the other ones, which was the I-5 bridge in 2007 in Minneapolis. God, was I know you were still living there. I can't remember, or were you?
I was,
I think,
yes.
Were we both? Yeah, we were both still living there when that happened.
Well, here's the thing. I remember it happened during a summer.
Mm-hmm.
And the girl I was dating at the time had like gone home for, she was like back in her home state. She was from like New York, maybe.
Oh, okay. So she's not there.
Yes. And so I'm still in Minnesota.
She was like traveling across the bridge.
And she saw this on the news and she called me. She was just like, I just wanted to make sure you were safe. And it made me so annoyed. I was like, of course I'm safe. And that was like kind of the big indicator. I was like, oh, this relationship isn't going to last. I'm annoyed when she shows genuine, reasonable human concern for me. It's not great.
Well, I hope she found someone who would care about her caring about that.
Yeah. That's all we can hope for anybody.
But also, you said you didn't think anybody died from it either. So you seem to not think it was as big of a deal, I guess, at the time.
Yeah, I must have been really empathetically shut down at the time. Just like not ready to confront the idea that I could be on a bridge. College,
you're like in your early 20s kind of trying to figure shit out.
I'm invincible.
Lane. I don't even know. Like, did you even have a car at that point?
I did, yes.
You did? Okay, that's right. Yeah.
I also, for the longest time, and it's crazy that this didn't affect me more, but for the longest time, I have, and still kind of do have, a fear of bridges. I have just like a little anxiety either traveling over bridges or under bridges that they're going to collapse right when I am within their destructible vicinity.
I think that's fair, especially because a lot of them are not well maintained. Because there was a whole big thing when that happened. It kicked off like a huge survey of bridges because the way this thing busted, I don't have it written down here, so I don't have the exact specifics for why it happened, but I know it was something like they fucked up when they built it. So like it shouldn't have collapsed the way that it did, but it was because either they were like doing cuts to like try and save money by kind of like skimping on materials or maybe not being as thorough as they should have been. And so I remember they had to do like a whole audit of a ton of bridges and found a bunch of other ones that were not in great shape either. But finding that out let them fix it. So
and
that was
the investigator who went and found these changes in the bridges was a 10-foot tall, red-eyed man with a 10-foot wingspan.
It's true. I have that here in my notes. Yep.
Yeah, he wore a little yellow construction hat.
So that was in 2007. Then in 2009 in Chihuahua, Mexico, a tall Mothman-like creature was seen chasing people out, trying to get them away from the town a week before a huge outbreak of swine flu occurred and killed a bunch of people. I do not have a number for that, though.
So Mothman is like history's greatest hero.
Apparently, but he's been spotted in Chicago recently, and nothing has happened there. So some people are like, they're trying to steal our cryptid, says West Virginia. That's all we have.
That's too bad.
Stop it.
Just to be safe, though, we should evacuate Chicago.
Yeah, maybe don't move to Chicago if you're planning that. But then there is also the theory that there is more than one Mothman. So maybe there is multiple Mothmans in multiple places warning people about multiple things.
Yeah, I think they have a satellite in space, and then they deploy the Mothman as they are needed across the world.
They just drop them.
You don't remember in January of this year, before the pandemic hit, when we all saw a Mothman?
You know what? Now that I think about it, I did see a weird thing in the sky. It had its back turned to me, though, so I couldn't be sure. I couldn't see the eyes. That's how you know.
Yeah. It's just a back and a wing.
Yeah, so, okay, let's get into, like, some of the theories of what people think
Mothman what is it? What's the deal?
We've gone through a couple of them, like, as they sort of popped up. But so, it's possible it's a sandhill crane that some teens saw, and then they made a story about it, or they were confused, and then the rest of their town made a story about it, and it just got out of hand.
Okay.
Or it was a large owl, same thing. Other people have theorized that it's tied to the Thunderbird myth, so it could be an actual, like, creature that's been around for a very long time and has had, like, different forms or interpretations throughout the years, and now we're just seeing it now in this way, and that's how modern people are interpreting it.
Okay.
Wikipedia says the Thunderbird is a legendary creature in North American indigenous peoples' history and culture. It is considered a supernatural being of power and strength. It is especially important and frequently depicted in the art, songs, and oral histories of many Pacific Northwest coast cultures. It was also found in various forms among some of the peoples of the American Southwest, East Coast of the United States, Great Lakes, and Plains. So it's kind of like a universal, not universal, but a deity that is like these tribes. I don't know if they had really the ability to connect with each other to share those. So it could be that thing where like, you know how different regions of the world dragons are a myth, even in these like cultures that never talk to each other about dragons. Sure. So it's kind of like either a universal thing that humans kind of came up with, or maybe it's real.
It's either that there actually are dragons or Carl Jung was correct about the collective unconscious.
Yeah, exactly.
And either way, magic is closer to being real in the universe than it was seconds before.
And on that note, it's theorized that maybe Mothman is an angel sent to protect people because he has wings and he's trying to warn people about disaster.
Yeah. You know, we always see depictions of angels as like beautiful, soft skin, let's be honest, generally white people in like flowing white robes who come down. The idea that angels would actually look like us is kind of silly.
Their descriptions, like I'm in no way an expert, but I know that like their actual biblical descriptions are like they have like 20 wings and like 5 arms and like a bajillion eyes. Like they're kind of horrifying to look upon.
I know, or the
just like kind of confusing to look upon, I think.
In Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials trilogy, the way he describes angels, I remember being just riveted by. It was like they looked at them, like the human characters looked at angels and they were nothing more than an expression of form and feeling or something. It's just like, it's the only thing I really want to see adapted in that show, in the HBO show, along with the giant bear. I did fall off that show before we got to the giant bear, and that's on me. But yeah, the idea that like angels, we would look upon them and they would be so far beyond our understanding. Do you ever hear this about the Native Americans when they first saw Christopher Columbus's ships? Apparently they physically physically could not see the ships because they were so far from their understanding that their brain just like passed
they just
over
admitted them or something. Okay, yeah, because I've heard of that thing, how like, you know, if people don't understand something, they will ignore it because they're trying to like preserve their sanity or their interpretation of the world, because that's how they function.
So if the Mothman is an angel and the only way we can see him is to put him into the shape of a monster, I'm on board with that explanation. You know what? That's where I'm going to put my money. If we are going to Vegas and laying some money down on what we think the answer to the Mothman is, I'm going angel, 60-1.
Angel? Okay. And then the alternative to that is he's a demon and he's actually causing these things to happen.
Okay, I'm going to hedge my bets and also bet on him being a demon.
And then the other interpretation is he's an alien. So he's just kind of figuring things out. He might have like a different awareness than humans could, you know, so he might be able to tell things are going to happen. Doesn't really know how to warn people because he's an alien, I guess. So
he's just clumsily trying to tell us that he loves us.
Yeah, maybe. So people think he could be an alien, especially because a lot of those like what I just told you about the Indrid Cole theory with that one guy is that Mothman is an alien, shape-shifting alien. And then also the concept of him being an interdimensional creature. So if he exists on multiple different planes or shifts between planes or whatever, that's how he can like either see into the future or, you know, I don't know, can see threads of fate, whatever you want to call it. So those are kind of like the main theories about Mothman.
Roxy, I've got my money on angels and or demons. Where are you falling on Mothman? What do you think he is?
I think as much as I would like to believe that there is a protector Birdman who is going to try and warn us about things happening, I think it's just some mass hysteria with these kids saw something, interpreted it one way, then some people in power believed him, and then it just kind of got out of hand from there. And then it was a cool thing to see Mothman everywhere.
I do think that's the answer.
Yeah, but you know what? Overall, it's a iconic example of urban legends and modern American folklore, which we don't really have a lot of, I feel like. And also, prism. So it's keeping Point Pleasant alive.
Yeah, I'm happy that, like, our most American myths always boil down to capitalism. It's like, yes, there is 100% a Bigfoot, and we are selling t-shirts about him, and therefore somebody is turning a profit on the backs of underpaid labor.
I like, at least in this way, it's focused on a specific town. So, like, it brings tourism to this town that I don't know what else they would have going for them. Because, like, they had that that factory that shut down that was like manufacturing. Like
were most of the jobs TNT jobs in Point Pleasant?
I think it was like a big factory at least. So I'm sure a lot of people were dependent on that in the town before it closed. But I'm not quite sure what else is like in that region of the country. Who knows? For all I know, they could have like booming other businesses, and this is just like a little aside.
Yeah, that's where eBay was started.
Was it?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, they got a big ass Mothman statue. You can go and admire his abs. So there's that.
Do they let me kiss him?
I mean, no one's going to stop you. So yeah.
Cool.
So Mikey, after all of that, what do you think the big idea of like the myth and concept of Mothman is?
So when I think about the future predicting aspect of him, I kind of subscribe to the universal theory that like we're just in chaos. We're a big bag of marbles, and that there is no higher power guiding us in any way, that it's up to human beings to make meaning out of the way those marbles are drawn, right? A tragedy happens to us, and then it's up to us human beings to make meaning out of it. When what's actually going on is that chaos is occurring. So I like the idea of the Mothman as sort of human beings' way of grappling with these calamitous tragedies that our brains are unable to accept on their own. Like, if we lived our lives constantly thinking bridges would collapse, like I kind of do, we wouldn't function. Like, there's so many things that could kill us so suddenly and so terrifyingly that if we're going to function, we have to say, no, I haven't seen a Mothman today. I am not going to die in a horrible accident. And therefore, we get to go to work and we get to love our families and we get to continue buying products.
That's how it works.
It's important to remember, Roxy. It all comes down to capitalism. But I do like the idea of the Mothman being a future prognosticator is our way of kind of calming down our anxiety.
Yeah, like it gives you a sense of control over a situation you cannot control.
We had a warning. Therefore, if the bridge collapses, it's not because we built a bridge wrong and we are never going to be able to be completely safe. It's that we didn't heed the warning. So now we know how to prevent this in the future. As opposed to continuing to let fate throw us random cards, we get to say, okay, we have an opportunity. Next time we will prevent against this.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what I think.
Is that what you think too?
Yeah. High five.
Roxy, I got a big question for you.
What is it?
What if we were to play a little Mothmans ourselves?
Play a little Mothman.
What if you and me looked into the future, as the Mothman so often does, and tried to guess how we were going to die? Do you have any thoughts? Do you think you have a specific way you're going to die?
Well, Mikey, if there's one thing you know about me, it's that I love skateboards and trick shooting. That's two of the main things everybody knows about me. So
wait a minute, is it called trick shooting? I've never heard that term before.
In this sense, yeah.
I love that. I love trick shooting.
So I think I would I go out in a blaze of glory trying to go for the world record kickflip 360 no scope and fail so badly that I fall into the ocean and die.
Oh, you're doing this on the beach.
I will be or off of a pier, I don't know. I'll be remembered forever. I'll still get that record, but I'll die for it.
I am picturing like the film version of this death, and it's like a camera shot from far away, and it's just a single static shot of you going up the ramp and then just falling straight into the ocean, and it's just like a little like bloop. That's it. Then just nobody ever sees you. Your skeleton is pulled out of the wreckage 4 years later.
Like, oh, that's where she went. I'm wondering about that. What about you, Mikey?
Okay, you know how much I love to eat pasta.
Yes.
I love pasta. I love just different sauces. I love slathering a long noodle. I like a big, thick linguine noodle covered in sauce.
You love those thick noodles.
I am, if I look into the future, the most likely way I'm going to die is that a snake is going to get into my pasta. And I'm going to be eating that pasta so fast that I won't even notice. And I will...
You're going to try and bite the snake, and then he's going to bite you.
No. I think I'm going to swallow the snake.
Oh, that's even more terrifying.
And then the snake is in my stomach, and he's crawling around, and he's biting the inside of my stomach, and I'm going to die of snake poison from it within.
That's horrifying, Mikey. I think you need to stop eating pasta. Is my advice to you.
First of all, my doctor has said the same thing numerous times.
Okay, well, then good. You got a good doctor then.
Roxy, I've got another question for you.
Okay, hit me.
How real is the Mothman? How likely, on a scale of 1 to 9, because 10 does not exist in the scary basement, how likely is the Mothman to be real?
You really got to figure out why 10 isn't here. It's a bummer that we can't.
No. We must never ask.
I can't go 50-50 when it's like this.
It's so scary. Why there's no 10?
I would like Mothman to be real, so I am going to say 4.5. I'm going to go in the middle.
Okay.
Sadly, I don't think he's real, so I guess I should say that's a 1. Aspirational or realistic here?
Well, also, how likely is the Mothman to come in the future? You know, if we're saying that he is, like, how likely is an angel or an interdimensional being to cross into our universe? I think the answer is an 8. I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet.
I want to say because it hasn't happened yet, I feel like it does not exist.
Have we talked about this before on the show, the Fermi paradox? The idea that, like, if there is infinite spaces and circumstances in the universe, why haven't we been contacted yet? And it's kind of paradoxical because the odds suggest we would have been contacted. Once that Fermi paradox is answered, I bet we're going to have interdimensional beings every other Tuesday. You know what I'm saying?
I want to be friends with an interdimensional being. That sounds fun.
Yeah. I want to just explore dimensions. Yeah. That's like my dream.
I want that more than anything. I've been playing that Star Wars game. That's all I can think about. How I want to go explore space.
Which is Star Wars Jedi Outcast.
Fallen Order. Yeah.
And yeah, he just travels to different planets and explores them all, like I want to do with my interdimensional Mothmans.
I want to go on a space adventure with Mothman. Let's go on a space adventure with Mothman and his dog, Mikey.
Hey, Roxy, your birthday's coming up.
In 6 months, yes.
We'll see if we can put something together.
Okay, you got an in? You're going to go talk to Mothman for me?
Yeah, my friend is developing an animated series with him.
Amazing. Of course he would be. Who wouldn't? Hey, what the hell? That's not mine.
Oh.
That's not yours either. Whose phone is that?
Oh, that's a different cell phone in the scary basement. Do you want to grab that quick, Roxy?
Okay. All right, here we go.
Oh, there you go.
Hello?
Heyo, this is Johnny Christman from UTA. I hear you're talking a lot about my client, the Mothman. Listen, if you want my guy to come out to your event, it's going to be $14,000 up front, and I can send over his list of riders.
I'm sorry, we can hire the Mothman?
You can if you go through me. I am Mothman's agent. This ain't no rinky-dink Jersey Devil kind of cryptid. We're talking about the motherfreaking Mothman.
Okay, see, I thought the Mothman was just a creature that appeared before major disasters took place.
Well, he is. You're right. The Mothman appears before a disaster takes place, and you can see how that might be a valuable booking, can't you? You get yourself a little text from your girlfriend. She says, "We need to talk." And so on your way, you send over the motherfreaking Mothman. He goes over to her house. All of a sudden, she thinks your breakup is going to lead to a disaster. No way does she leave you if she thinks it's going to make a bridge collapse in Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
Oh, I see. So you're swindling people and using Mothman to trick people into thinking a disaster's coming. That sounds great.
You are correct. That is my business, and business is good. A Mothman visit is good for anyone whose dad is thinking about writing them out of the will, or a corporate vice president who suspects they're about to get passed over for a promotion. Hell, at this year's NFL draft, the Philadelphia Eagles were about to pick the wide receiver that I was hoping was going to fall to my beloved Minnesota Vikings. So I called in a favor from the Mothman, had him show up at the Eagles draft room. These dummies were scared out of their minds, thinking that if they drafted LSU's Justin Jefferson, it might make a bridge collapse in Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
Okay, so, how do you go about signing a monster like Mothman in this way?
Well, with any good agency, part of the issue is finding talent. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. See, I was at the Trader Joe's in Silver Lake. You know what a nightmare it is to park there.
Yeah. Boy, do I.
So I parked my car kind of shitty-like, right? Diagonal. Technically in the lines, but in a way that'd make it real hard for the guy next to me to get out. And when I get out of my car, who do I see standing there but the mother-freaking Mothman? He's wearing that blue polo shirt that they make their Trader Joe's employees wear. I guess they had him stalking the parking lot, warning drivers who parked bad that disaster was imminent. I took one look at that humanoid figure with enormous wings and red eyes, and I said, baby, your talents are wasted here.
Wait, okay, but now Mothman is so famous he has a writer?
Yeah, look, the Mothman has a lot of needs that he has to have addressed, so we have everyone sign a rider saying they'll provide the amenities that a cryptid of his stature deserves.
Okay, so not because I actually want to hire the Mothman, but because I think tricking people into thinking they're about to be in a disaster is mean. But because I'm curious, what the hell is Mothman's writer? Was a writer?
Well, it's actually a fairly conventional list of requirements for a cryptid as famous as the Mothman. My guy needs 2 hotel rooms, 18 bottles of water, 2 bottles of champagne, a bowl of only brown M&Ms. Not because brown M&Ms taste any different, but because if the Mothman walks into his room and sees a bowl of only brown M&Ms, he knows the rest of his rider has been taken care of. And finally, the Mothman needs a 1-room-sized lamp.
A lamp?
Yeah, a lamp the size of the room, that is correct. I actually added that one myself. See, we used to have a problem with the Mothman tearing up the hotel room after just a couple of drinks. Now we get this giant lamp in there and he just stares at it, mere feet away, all night long.
I suppose all things considered, that's not really too much to ask for.
Oh, also the Mothman demands 1 fallen bridge in Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
I think we'll pass. Thanks for the call.
Roxy, who was that?
Don't worry about it. It was just prank call, I think.
Oh, okay. Great. Roxy.
All right. Mikey?
We're at the end of our scary basement journey.
Oh my goodness, it's already been that long already, huh?
Yes. Before we go, I want to hear what's making you happy. What's good in your life, Roxy?
What's good in my life is a very simple but important pleasure, which is really nice, cozy sheets. I got these wonderful sheets. They're like winter sheets from my parents. They're very fluffy. They're very soft. Is immensely easier to fall asleep now.
That's great. It's too bad that that's what's making you happy, though, because I did just find out that your bed is the bed that inspired the 1977 film Deathbed, the Bed That Eats. So,
wait, no.
Yeah. When you lay down in those new bed sheets, that's essentially a piece of lettuce to the hamburger that is you.
Oh, God, it's like wrapping me up in a burrito to be eaten. Okay, well... Now I'll have to sleep on the floor. Great.
That's going to do it for us at Scary Basement. We're going to do our best to escape. Roxy, are you ready to run?
Yes.
And go!
Okay.